Welcome everyone back to another episode of Woven Wings Live, where we bring you wisdom and tools for vibrant living. And I'm your host, Gabe Crane. I'm joined by my co-host, Rahul Deedwania. And if you enjoy listening to us, please share our episodes with a friend and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts. And you can also join our newsletter, which is linked in the show description at wovenwings.net to follow along on your journey. And so our episode today is called Uplifting Life and Health, Exploring a Holistic Health Paradigm. And our guest is Jackie Blunt, a retired MD and practice development coordinator for Ren Shui International, who lives in Nelson, New Zealand. And so before we get into this really interesting episode, I think around holistic health and what it really means to be healthy and to uplift our life, different approaches to that. I guess I'm curious, Rahul, just as we started off here, what do you think about this idea of health in general? How do you relate with that concept? And then this idea of a holistic health paradigm, what does that mean in contrast to typical understandings of health?
Yeah, thank you so much, Gabe. And health is something that I feel comes up time and time and time again at different stages in life, as in the form of a reminder that everything to some degree begins with health. When health is compromised, then everything else, almost doesn't even matter, right? Even if it's compromised to a lesser degree, it doesn't have to be. We often think of like truly debilitating physical issues or mental issues. A lot of conversation around mental health these days. But even something small, right, has this ripple effect into how we move through our day-to-day lives, how we make decisions, how we interact with people. And I think having a perspective on what being healthy means to us, is very important, because that then gives us the orientation to know, when we're not healthy, right, and what we need to do, or when we need to put attention or energy towards becoming healthy. And so that's kind of the first layer when I just think about health as an idea. And then this idea of holistic health is one that I'll admit is more something I've only maybe been exposed to or thought about at a very conceptual level, but something that really resonates with me, is this idea that it's not just about some acute area where you might know that, hey, I'm quote unquote unhealthy, right? Like, hey, my head is hurting, or I've developed shoulder pain. It's very easy to just look at that in isolation. And even within the physical health paradigm, there's a conversation around how, hey, if your shoulder's hurting, it could be that your back is tight or that your hip is tight, and actually it's flowing up there. But then there's an even more of a widening of the aperture, which is, well, where's your mood? Where's your stress level? Where's your emotional health, your mental health, your spiritual health? And how is that connected to what you might be experiencing physically? Or the other way around, like, hey, I'm feeling really stressed. Oh, hey, it's because my shoulder's messed up. Like, I don't know. And I haven't made that. So I think just this idea of being able to look at health, or when I think of holistically, it's kind of hitting all of those buckets, right? Mind, body, soul, and finding how those things are all intersecting amongst one another. So yeah, I'll pause there, and I'm curious, Gabe, what that evokes for you.
Yeah, no, I really appreciated what you shared there, and I resonate with it. I think that Jackie and I know each other through the Ren Shui community, and the Ren Shui community is a international body of folks who are using Qigong as a primary tool to uplift their life. But it's really, it's not actually just Qigong that they use. And we're going to be learning about that today with Jackie through the use of this other technique, Yuan Ming, which is really around using our consciousness to be able to see across a lot of those sectors that you just identified, to be able to see and apply the same principle of well-being, of qualities or approaches to life that create health, attitudes, and seeing how those then apply at the physical level of our life, at the relationship level, or at the mental health level, and that all these pieces are actually interrelated and connected. And so for me, when I think about that, and maybe this is helpful too, as kind of just a primer for Jackie's background as well, because we share that, is that Ren Shui really teaches this idea of Ming, Yuan Ming. Jackie was reminding me of this as we were getting ready for this episode, that Ming means this brightness, and Yuan means the whole. It means a number of things. It could be the whole or the origin point. And so it's really this idea of this brightness that emanates from our consciousness, or certain traditional sources that talk about the consciousness is like the sun. It emerges and it shines out and it touches everything, but we lose that. We don't always have that awareness. We're not always connected to that healing potential that we have inside of us. And so I think that for me, when I think about wholeness, I also think about this kind of this underlying layer to some of those different, broken down categories you named, of like, in this world, we've got like my physical body, and you're a separate person and Jackie's someone else, right? But on this other level, we've got just this consciousness that's coming out, and our ability to kind of join with it, fuse with it, be part of it, trust it and its own healing potential to come forward. So I think that that's actually really important to, this buzz term of like a holistic health paradigm, the holistic health, that it really is rooted in this deep connection to something, I'd say, that's like foundational in the world, or there's this like a soulful connection, or a connection to this power of the consciousness, or whatever we would want to call that. And so so on that note, I think Jackie will be able to fill us in on many more details of that. And so I think it's great to bring her in here. And so on that note, I'd like to introduce Jackie Blunt, who is our guest today. And Jackie sent us a more serious, professional bio, and then she switched it up into this bio, which I think maybe also expresses health. It's like a lot more personal. And so I'm just going to read this. I love it. It says, Jackie grew up riding a pony to school and puddle jumping while she wondered how the world might find peace with all the wars that were always going on somewhere. And that seemed like a good training ground for independent thinking and a lifelong exploration of how people and the world heal. While taking a break from studying medicine and traveling through Asia, Jackie became very ill while meditating on a monastery in Thailand, and was fortunate to survive a coma and to come back with new insights from a near-death experience. And since then, Jackie has been a doctor in New Zealand in the Pacific region. She's been a well-being team lead in the educational sector. And then she's also been a Ren Shui teacher and coach, currently works as the practice development coordinator for Ren Shui International, developing Yuan Ming practice. And she's also involved developing a Ren Shui retreat center, which is in formation outside Nelson, New Zealand. And so Jackie is our guest today. Jackie, thank you so much for agreeing to come on the show with us today. It's so nice to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Gabe and Rahul. It's such a pleasure.
Yeah, and so just as a broad framing, I think we'd probably like to just pitch this same question that Rahul and I just riffed on a bit to you, which is this idea of holistic health. In your own words, in your perspective, how would you define that? What is your idea of holistic health, and how does it contrast to some of our more typical understandings of health, especially in like the Western world and the Western medical model?
It's a great question, and I really enjoyed listening to you two with your clarity around that and your different ways of exploring it. So that's the first thing I would say, is it's so different for everyone. And maybe we could just summarize it in a few words, that for me, holistic health is around working out what the problem is. So you might put that in more traditional terms like diagnosis and treatment. And then this word nourish comes along the line. It's like, okay, how do we support a beneficial process in which there is a health problem? And from there we get to words like restore and grow. So for me, holistic health is doing all of those things while we're working with whatever the health situation is, whatever the personal situation is. So those words, nourish, restore, grow, when you are doing those things in life, no matter what your health is doing, there's benefit all round. It just, that shining you were talking about, Gabe, that brightness, it starts to perfuse all the processes that are related to your health, whatever that is. And you guys and everyone listening knows that there are thousands and millions of ways that we've developed to work on health. But those are kind of the principles that I have grown to really love.
Thank you for sharing that, Jackie. And I know in preparation for this episode, right, we had that exchange around, we were originally wondering, like, hey, do we use a word like treating your health? What I heard in the way you were just talking about it was part of your, what you said as a contrast to that, which is it's not necessarily about coming in and treating, it's about this uplifting, right? The nourishing, the nurturing, allowing that to build on itself. And it's not about necessarily, maybe the starting point is this acute health issue or something that we observe or notice, but it's actually bigger than that as far as the process of healing. And I heard that in what you were just saying, which is, very much looking forward to exploring that in more detail. As part of continuing to lay the foundation, would love it if you could just give us an overview of Yuan Ming and what Yuan Ming is and what's powerful and beneficial about that particular approach.
Thanks, Rahul. And I'll just sort of move on from what Gabe was saying, Yuan meaning everything. That's quite a big amount of stuff, isn't it? And it also has that meaning of whole and rounded and as good as it can be, and from the biggest to the smallest. So Yuan is a wonderful word to describe a system where you want to help everything move and become as bright as it can. Ming means bright, like the moon and the sun. It has that connotation of universal brightness and light. So Yuan Ming is a system that works using the tools from Ren Shi and Yuan Gong to really help people heal and grow. So you can apply it in lots of different ways. You can apply it working with the body, working with becoming healthier physically. So, for example, one of the things that I do in Ren Shi International is work with people with their wellbeing plans, and we look at, okay, what happens when you're working at home in the office and you're on the screen a lot? What do you need to look after your body, and what might you forget? Like simple things like eating, drinking, moving, all of those kind of things. So it's not forgetting any of those basic things. They are there in the foundation because we live in a body. It's a pretty critical part of life here on earth. So there's that, and then there's the piece around looking after your energy, looking after your chi, having it flow well, having a good quantity of energy. Rahul, when I first started doing Qigong, I was a really tired rural GP with 3 little kids and a farm to run and on call a lot. And I went along and I did this hours class, and I reckon I was feeling about 70 years old. I haven't got to 70 yet, but anyway, I was feeling much older and more tired than my 40 years should have had me at that point. And I did this hours class and I was like, oh my heavens, I feel like I'm 20 again. I never knew I could even feel like that again. I was like, what just happened? I can't quite believe that. So, my curiosity was really stirred and triggered. And I've been amazed coming through a traditional Western education, and, a lot of what we do in family practice is work with people with pain and chronic pain. And, I started doing Qigong, and some of my chronic pain that was in my own body just started to disappear. And I was like, well, this is weird because I'm not going to physio and I'm not taking painkillers and I'm not having surgery. I'm just increasing this thing called chi, and my
Mm.
pain's going away. So for me as a scientist, I'm like, I'm really curious now. What is going on here? So we might work with people around their energy, their chi, getting that flowing better, seeing how that's running. So the first four methods, or the first particularly, work with the body's physical chi, and then beyond that, we start to really explore the effect of the consciousness, because in this system, that one of the really important principles is that information guides the flow of energy through life. And your consciousness is like an antenna that is sort of beaming out information all the time. So now, when you were talking about your personal life and your mood and that kind of thing, so we start helping people to feel their heart and what the positive states of the heart are, like gratitude. I've worked with people when they've been going through their transition into dying, and they've chosen a focus and a practice of gratitude, and it has turned their passage and the weakening of the body and the loss of functions into something incredibly beautiful. Here's this person who's losing the ability to get out of bed, and they're doing this group focus with all their caregivers on gratitude. What am I grateful for today? And this brightness fills the room when people engage, feel their heart, and activate and engage with it in that way. So, that then gives us a real strength to engage with, well, what are my patterns in life? How am I thinking and feeling, behaving? How is that rippling out? Is that bright? Or is it kind of dull? Or is it a bit edgy or a bit aggro in places? What am I actually doing in this vast pond of life? What ripples am I sending out? So you can see that kind of that principle in physics, that we're both a particle and a wave. So we look after the particle, we look after the physical and the body's energy and all those principles, but we also look at the wave. And if you like, the wave is more the chi and information, what is going out from you into the world, but also what is the effect of your consciousness, including your heart, on your body, because that's the bit of the world that it's affecting most closely all the time. So Yuan Ming
So
is about using all those tools to help people step into themselves, if you like, and their creativity and their initiative to really, really uplift their lives and help it go in a better direction. So typically it's a trained practitioner, trained Renchu teacher who's helping someone else with those tools. And the teacher has a lot of experience applying that already to their own life. So I hope that
so
gives you a clearer picture.
yeah, thanks for that, Jackie. And I think you gave a lot of great examples in there, and I think some of the core concepts I pulled out from that are just the importance of the consciousness and this idea of the heart in health. And then also, you mentioned this, Rahul, about the treatment versus uplifting, right? I thought about where have I encountered some of these kind of ideas in Western medicine is like in the concept of preventative health, like that, oh, we want to do these things to be preventative, to kind of avoid illness. And there's a difference in what I hear in what you're describing, which is about connecting with well-being, uplifting into something in kind of an ongoing process of growth, of elevation. So it's centered around the growth. It's not centered around the prevention of the illness or the avoidance. It's not centered around the illness, essentially. Um, so those are a couple powerful ideas. I think the heart one in particular maybe is a little bit new, or I think it's maybe that's one of the blocks that I know personally I've had, or think is kind of typical, is that instantly someone says the heart, and then we're like, oh, this like mushy thing. Does love exist? Like like this, it provokes all these kind of like responses. And I think it'd be helpful to sit with that a little bit more. If you could explain to us a bit more about like, why is the heart important, and what is the heart's relationship with this idea of consciousness that we're talking about, and how does that contribute to health, and to growth over time?
Thanks, Gabe. Those are great questions. So I think in Yuan Ming and Ren the way we experience and work with the heart is, as you said, a little or quite a lot different to that kind of understanding that we have in our cultural understanding, I guess. So the heart is an aspect of consciousness. It's part of it, and it speaks in the language of feeling and image. And it has the ability to be that portal that we can engage with the universe, as Bill Richards said, the eternal world. And it also has its own patterns. So what we tend to be much more familiar with in life is the patterns of the heart. The kind of mushy stuff, the desires, the attachments, the obsessions, the strong feelings, the sort of rush of infatuation, love, that kind of thing. But the heart has this depth and power that is way beyond that. And I guess for me, I experienced that first growing up on the farm with not many people around, and just feeling a unity with nature as I was moving around the landscape with the animals, and really wondering what that was. And then later in art, and then in meditation. So the heart is, described in traditional Chinese medicine as the throne for the emperor, the place for the consciousness to sit, to rest. And so as you become more and more conscious of the heart, it kind of opens up this wonderful world of warmth and love without conditions, trust, all the profound positive feelings that you can find in wisdom culture everywhere that illuminate life and also profoundly connect us with totality, with everything there is, with each other, with nature. The heart is the place where we find answers to who am I, and we experience being part of everything. So it's a very essential part of the consciousness, but it's so you can both differentiate it and unify it with the whole of consciousness, if you like. I think
that imagery that you just painted, Jackie, around the heart and it being, what I got is like a gateway, right, to that illumination, to that connectedness, to that spirituality, sense of spirituality, for lack of a better word, like what's really coming through there. And I'd love to just keep going down this angle for a minute, and wanting to draw the connection between that and health. I think we on this podcast very much value all of the pieces of heart and consciousness that you alluded to. And I wanted to just understand, like, so what does that have to do with health? Like if I know I can believe within myself, like if I'm feeling connected, if whether with nature or with other people or with, the eternal world or divine consciousness or whatever term we use, I tend to associate that with a sense of upliftment, right? And typically in that state, I imagine just feeling good, for lack of a better way to put it. But I'd be curious, if you could draw that connection to health, and then as a secondary part to that, also maybe share like, so what does it look like to bring this awareness of heart and connection to consciousness into a holistic health practice, as far as what you do and what you guide people through?
Thank you. It's quite an opportunity you're giving me there, Rahul. So I might need to come back to the second question, or you might need to remind me of it.
No problem.
I guess first, there's so much that happens when you live from the heart that relates to health. So there's stuff first that doesn't happen. So let me explain that a little bit more. What I notice, the more I am connected in my heart with myself and with the whole, the safer I am in the world. So one of the things I noticed as I trod along this path was I stopped having so many accidents. I tell you what, that was a real benefit for health, because the heart is listening. And so I just became much more in the right place at the right time. And I've had some really significant accidents. I have fractured vertebrae and that kind of thing. So I'm really grateful for that. So there's that aspect. And then other things that happen when you integrate the development of the heart with health and healing are that things tend to, not always, get better much faster, and healing options just come along much more naturally. So there's a kind of an openness and a feeling of connecting to this beneficial flow, this river of life that is going in a good direction. And so you experience a health issue, and you go into yourself and you listen and you explore with your heart that part of your body, and you find you grow in all kinds of ways, because it's often an area of your life that you haven't actually ventured into, you haven't had the resources. So for example, a lot of us experience trauma of some kind, and as you deepen your state through practice and grow into yourself and become aware of your heart, you can find parts of your body that are just kind of switched off. They're not warm and open and flowing. They're just kind of tense and frozen. And those parts of your body will kind of open as an information bank to trust and love, but they won't open to control and, come on, you need to get better. I'm really sick of this. This hurts, or it doesn't work, or, so it just opens the possibilities, Rahul, hugely. So when I'm working with people, for example, and there's a health issue, we'll explore it on all these different levels. We'll look at any simple physical principles they could use, like, are they sitting at the desk in a bad posture? It's not forgetting all of that stuff. But then we might explore, okay, is there an aspect of self-love that is missing here, that you just stop taking any notice of yourself and think that whatever is out there is everything? How come you lose your awareness of yourself? And that then brings in the aspect of heart and love and trust. So Western thought, we tend to be quite linear. One of the things I loved about learning, even at a simple level, about traditional Chinese medicine is that it's much more a picture and about coherence. And that's what I find when you bring all these other aspects into health, you get this incredibly coherent and strong signal towards health through the body and through the mind and the heart. And life can change dimensionally. I don't know if that's even a word. So I think, is that the first question you asked me? Or did I answer both in the end?
No, I think you hit on both. The second question, as a reminder, was just to talk about what it looks like in practice, right? And I think what I heard there is that you look at all of it, right? There's an inquiry that is guiding, just this process of looking, right? Looking at on these different layers. So yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, and I think building from that, I think it'd be really wonderful to hear a little bit more of specific examples and some about your own experiences, Jackie. 'Cause I think we've talked so far about okay, some abstract examples, right? Of someone has shoulder pain, or we have these different experiences that come up and how we might apply it. But then I know just from your own story, Jackie, some of which we've alluded to so far, you've really put these tools into practice in your own life and changed your life as a result of that. You were describing showing up at this Qigong class and being moved by that and following that, pursuing that. And we also shared in the intro when you're coming on about a near death experience you had while you're in medical school and going into a coma and the role that played in shaping your own approach to medicine and your interests. So I'm curious if you might be able to enlighten us more through your own experience of how these tools were applied. For example, in that in that case of you showing up to a qigong class and being someone who's raising three small children, running a clinical practice, also running a farm, and being exhausted and I'm just curious as you went down that route, as you found value in that, and you went and you pursued that. What were some of the patterns or beliefs that you uncovered, or status of your own heart and consciousness that that kind of engaging this whole process helped you to heal and to come to deeper understandings?
Thank you, Gabe. Um, I guess the first thing I would say is, you kind of hope that 17 years down the track with a practice, you'll be a completely different person than you were when you started, and I think I can really say that. Um, I think, like you guys, I've always been a seeker, a questioner. How does life work, and what are all the different pieces, and that's taken me on many journeys, including to Thailand and to California in my early 20s and studying medicine. And yeah, I think in Thailand, I did get really sick uh, and was in a coma, but I had some really life-changing experiences there. And what I recall is I have this picture in my mind of looking down at myself where I had collapsed in the bathroom in the hospital where I was, and what went through my awareness. So I was definitely in awareness, even though that was my body down there. Was, wow, I've done a really bad job getting to this point. If I get the chance to come back, I'm going to really do a good job. I need to do it so differently. and and then my next kind of awareness is this feeling of just being out and everything, and seeing these lines of light, just lines of light connecting me with everything that I loved and that loved me, and that was all there was just love. And these lines kind of held me in, and I think, and I've always felt that that's how I was able to come back, because back in my little hometown in New Zealand, there were people who, my mum had got the phone call, and there were people who were praying for me and meditating for me, and my family who really loved me. My mum said She planted 100 onions in the garden that day and she didn't remember any of them. And so that experience of pure love and the distillation that was all there was and all that was important was kind of like, oh, wow, okay. And that's what I brought back with me and what kind of guided my footsteps after that. And they were still messy footsteps, and they went in a lot of ways because you were talking about patterns. I had patterns of my value was in my work. I need to serve people. My own personal health and energy is, I don't even think about that. That's so I'd been raised in quite an externally oriented world. I was a bright kid. I did well at sciences. I should help people. Bang, I go into medicine, and I love helping people. It's just that medicine, the system that I was in, it doesn't encourage a lot of depth to self-care and inward reflection and balance. It's just, for me, it was kind of like give as much as you can, keep going. Is there something wrong with you? You can't keep going. And so then when I had children, like I had been able to keep up till then, I was like, I hit the wall. It's like, oh my gosh, this is me with limitations. This is me 3 sheets to the wind. I don't even know myself. So emotional and up and down and so exhausted and so not the mum that I wanted to be with my kids. So yeah, I'd been meditating for 15 years by then. I'd been trying everything that I could to, living in nature, living in the country. I've got a wonderful partner. But it's amazing when you're that exhausted and fried, how your wonderful partner turns into the partner from hell, and you turn into the partner from hell as well. so, so, I started with the Qigong lessons, and then I really got interested because it's a system. Rinxia is a system. And I went and did the first teacher training. That was the first week I'd had away from my kids. And it was like, wow, these people are so lovely. They're so warm. They're so respectful. They're still people. We all have our patterns, but it's like there's something really good going on here. And so it's been a lot of years of growth, Gabe. They haven't been easy. I've had so many patterns to face, things like negativity. It's like, wow, if you want that lovely partner you have not to be the partner from hell, maybe the first thing you have to do is look at your thinking about the partner. It's like, oh man. I remember going on this teacher retreat, and that was the pattern that came up for me. It was like, here it is, Jackie. Here's everything you're thinking about your partner. And I was so ashamed. It was just, there were so many angry, negative thoughts. And I was like, oh, I just about melted on the spot. I'm so sorry. And so I felt into my heart, and I felt all the love that was there. And I gathered chi, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to send him this enormous globe, this beautiful circle of love and care for all the times that I've been mad and sad or whatever and thought it was his fault and not owned it myself. And so I sat and I did it. And in those days, I didn't know about using the mind lightly and the power of the heart and the mind. So I did it really earnestly and seriously. And I was like, okay, well, at least I felt much better. And then I came home after 2 weeks, and I said, and after a few days, I said, oh, there was this time that I sent you, lots of love and healing because I realized how negative I've been in the relationship. Did you feel anything? And he said, oh, is that what it was? Well, next time, could you tell me? Because I was sitting at work at my computer, and all of a sudden I had this really funny feeling in my head, and I couldn't concentrate on anything. And I thought, am I getting a migraine? And I was like, I don't know what's going on here, but this is too weird, and I just need to go home and lie down. So, there's so much to learn, so many patterns to change. And so much love that's there that you just don't even know until you take the inward path and start to see yourself and find the things you're not doing well, but also what you can do, what power you have to help.
Jackie, really loved just hearing that story, just feeling like I was along with you on the ride, of all these years of what your path has been. And one of the prompted many things, but one of the thoughts that's really sticking out to me was just this, the different influences that you've had, ranging from maybe achievement oriented, Western medical model, all of that, to the more maybe traditionally oriented, inward oriented, love and feeling driven, oriented models. And just would love to hear you talk a little bit about, or one of the things I'm remembering you said when we spoke earlier was that you respect and you integrate all of these influences, and I'm conscious of the fact that, even with the way I started out, and I feel like the collective tone we've taken is to say, hey, the Western model is limited. Let's look at this other one, that integrates everything. And I want to come back to the sentiment that you had proposed, which is, hey, there's beauty, in all of these different sources and learning and opportunity to illuminate, coming from each of these different directions. And so the question is just wanting to understand, how have you related to these tensions? How have you coexisted with what might be perceived as contradictory ways of looking at things, and actually integrated them into the perspective that you hold now, what we're also calling the holistic perspective. I'd love to just hear you share a little bit about that.
There's, Thank you. It's not a simple question, Rahul, but let's see what we can do with it. And I've had some wonderful conversations with Gabe along the way about these things too. So maybe, Gabe, you'll have some insights to share with us too.
Sure.
So it's a really interesting area. I have a fundamental respect for medicine. I wouldn't be here without medicine. And because that's what saved my life when I was in the coma. But I also had a really practical lesson then. I had this team of doctors and specialists, but I had this one doctor, Dr. Irene, and she cared. She touched me, as I knew she was there for me. And she was the one who kind of pulled me through. The other doctors, they pulled me through too. They had the specialist areas and cardiologist, and I remember well, and all of their information and knowledge and intervention was really important. But what I learned from that was actually the connection that you have with someone who's really suffering deeply, and kind of when you're really unwell, it's like your skin gets thin, you get much more porous, you can feel things much more clearly. And someone who is there with love for you, that just makes such a difference. I will never forget her. I have such a debt to her. And the way she was with my parents as well, you can imagine. She is this unknown doctor phoning them on the farm in New Zealand saying, well, actually, your daughter's in a coma and she might die, and can you get over here? So much compassion. So I had those examples from the beginning, but I really battled. I found doctors who worked in those ways, but many who didn't. And I struggled to find the humanity and the compassion in medicine. And then I guess as I went along, I just found people like that, people who somehow could do it and keep their hearts open and be the kind of doctors that people wanted and needed. I can't tell you how many people would come in to talk to me and say, I hate doctors, and I don't hate you, and I don't know why. And they might often sort of finish the conversation with, look, I just feel better when I come and see you. What you do is, the doctoring is good, but I feel so much better. And so, I had a lot of tension around that. And I used to think medicine doesn't allow me to be the way I want to be. It's medicine's fault. But as I've gone along this internal path, I've realized, hey, Jackie, no, that's just your own pattern of avoiding and hiding. You're just using that role to limit yourself. You don't need to do that. I have a respect for medicine. I needed to retire from medicine to really be myself and the person that I wanted to be. And also, Rahul, I got all used up. I came into menopause, and even with all my Qigong practice, I was tired. My injuries were catching up with me. Memory is different when you go through menopause. Estrogen is a very important neurotransmitter. You guys may not know that, and I didn't know that till then. So I learned. I've been learning to feel for the flow. To feel for where the universe in me can bring the most life to life. And so that's how I've come to really respect medicine and all the systems for what they are, even with their contradictions. But actually, when they're going well, when they're all going in the direction of benefiting life, they don't contradict each other. And what do you find, Gabe? You're a holistic practitioner.
Well, this conversation brings me back to a conversation you and I, Jackie, had several years ago when I was doing some research on placebo effects, and I was writing a research article on placebo effects, and I think this ties into a number of issues that we think about in the West. Really around skepticism, like around these ideas. And I think we touched on that earlier with this idea of, like sometimes if you think about the heart, you start thinking about all these kind of Hollywood ideas or these things that actually don't have that much, if anything, to do with what we're actually talking about here, around this deep love and this deep appreciation for life. And what I hear you describing in your own experience working as a doctor and the way people would respond to you is, it seems to me that you were really embodying, even as the work, it used you up, as you said, you still needed to transition at a certain point and retire, or move into something else, but that you were practicing a kind of an art to medicine, or like the idea of like a bedside manner, like this aspect of being a doctor, which is about not the the medication you're providing or the instrument that you're being able to do a very specific examination and test. All that's important, but that there is this quality of being that is actually in itself healing, and actually just very essential to providing care to others. But it's really interesting, in my experience with that, doing that research, a lot of those things in our Western viewpoint are, kind of wrapped up in this idea of placebo effects, which are very strong. Like, what's funny about placebo effects is that they're very strong, but the way we think about them is that they are essentially fake. Placebo effects aren't real, is like the core idea there. It's like they don't really matter. Placebo effects don't actually make a difference. But actually, what all of these clinical trials show is that no, that it's like so effective. What you think, what you believe, how you relate with your own self is so effective that we have to go to great lengths to actually eliminate that effect to get accurate data about anything else. And so, I have had other friends who are have gone through medical school. They're doctors now, and you know, are doing amazing work, and have also been challenged at different points by just the sheer volume just of what they're expected to learn, or what the whole process of going through medical school requires of them, and kind of where it places them in their own consciousness, and where it puts them out. So I guess that my curiosity to you would just be any any insight you might be able to share with us about the value, or like how to approach that, giving that care, that idea of bedside manner. Maybe it's like this is a one question maybe from you as a retired doctor to other medical professionals out there, around what is the importance of that, and how do we kind of get back to that, within our medical system? Because I think that's something that, those people coming to you telling you that they hate doctors. Unfortunately, I think that's a common. I'm not about doctors in general. If you're listening, but I think that's a common experience that people have,
Yeah.
just relating with modern medicine.
Mm. I think it, and sadly it is. And, it's probably linked to things like the first experience you have in your subconscious with a doctor, maybe a needle in your arm, and as a baby or a child. There are lots of reasons for that feeling, but it is very present. I think that what I've really seen work beautifully with doctors is growing in awareness of themselves as a person, and growing in the same way that we've been talking about. So getting to know your heart, having practices that support you and nourish you, your energy. I know quite a lot of doctors who do yoga now, which is great. But if we can, when we're caring for other people, really feel and experience the heart, it's the place where we're unified. So we're not giving from ourselves anymore. We are kind of there together, walking alongside each other and being nourished by the universal love, if you like. So it becomes deeply nourishing for everyone. And medicine, when you care for people and help them with medicine from that place, it gives so much to the doctor as well. And it does take learning and growing and openness. It's not something you can just do. Some people can, like Dr. Irene. I don't know how she came to that, but it's really good to learn how to do it well, because there are so many ways you can kind of go wrong, do it badly. You can start opening up the heart, and you can find some real strong patterns there, like things that have been obsessions in the past, and they can kind of wake up again. And we all need a bit of help and guidance with things that have derailed us in the past, or are currently kind of obsessive ways of thinking. So it's good to do it in a safe system and in a safe way.
I'd really like to follow that thread now, and I feel like we have a good conceptual bedrock, to work off of here, as far as what we mean when we're talking about holistic health, and having looked at it from a few different angles now. And so the thread I was alluding to is, what does it look like for somebody that's listening to this and they're like, hey, okay, I get it, I'm all for it, sold. What do I do now? How do I engage in this idea, or engage with this idea, and actually put into practice some of the principles that we're talking about, and take a holistic approach to well-being, right? And I loved, Gabe, what you said earlier about like striving for well-being, not preventing illness, right? It's like, I think that as a paradigm shift in how we think about our health is super powerful. But how do we build from there? What do we do?
It is a really powerful shift, and it's so present now in the wellbeing science and the wellbeing literature. That's a much younger baby than medicine, but it's leading so strongly. So I guess lots of different ways for lots of different people, Rahul. And I guess fundamentally, I would say, in a path that goes inward, these treasures and potentials and brightness, the brightness of life is inside. So we're very much an external seeking culture. We like to think, okay, if I go for a run and I eat the right food, and I was doing that for years and getting tighter and tighter, and then everything will be fine. And it's not that we shouldn't go for a run and eat the right food, but actually what's on the inside is far more important. So what's on the outside and what you do is also important. Not having any polarized thinking here. That doesn't work very well. So how would you do that? I mean, I guess for me, I've explored lots and lots of different ways over time, and I like a system where I can understand the principles and then apply the principles. So if I'm thinking about Ren Shi or Ren Shui, which is I'm talking about it because it's the most complete system that I have come across in all my exploring. Then I would say, okay, find a way to go inward. Now, that might be meditation, that might be doing some Qigong, that might be going to a class in Qigong, Tai Chi, yoga. They're not all the same. They all go different places. But start on the inward journey and then explore. Like if people are listening, they can go to the Learn Ren Shui site. They can listen to podcasts. They can talk to a teacher. For some people, going inward needs someone to work with, and that's really important. So one of the things I do in Ren Shui is I'm part of the mental health advisory, because there are some experiences in life that are locked away in us, and if we go inward and we experience those again without support, so I'm talking about deep trauma, then that can be not a good experience, not a healthy experience. So that's why I'm kind of saying, okay, it's different for everyone, but go inward. And even if you learn a simple way of focusing on the breath, that will help your mind, that will help your body, that will help your energy. When we start with the very first practice in Ren Shui, we do a preparation, and I could go through that with you, which is just coming inside, relaxing the body, focusing on the breath. And then, unlike some other traditions, which probably sounds quite similar up till now, we would then take our consciousness out into the universe and just feel, just see if we can make ourselves one with everything that's out there. And then come back in, just within the space of the body, and really clearly focusing on the space, the energy, the wave of the body, that aspect, and into the awareness of the heart. So yeah, in the physical space of the chest, but in the feel and the being of the heart, like, am I feeling calm? Am I feeling trust? Do I feel open? Do I feel loving? And then opening that state out and feeling the heart in the universe. Feeling that infinite ground of love and being. Wow, what is that? It's one of the most profound mysteries and awe-inspiring beauty that we can experience. We kind of touch it when we see or hear or feel something really moving. And then we bring that into the body, and we feel how the body and the body's flow, the body's chi, if we can feel that, responds to that. So, someone could start just by doing that as an everyday practice. So it's not easy to say, where do you start? How do you do it? I would say, go look at Learn Ren Shui or Ren Shui and try some stuff. But fundamentally, go with what's authentic for you. Go with where you feel is good.
And some of the maybe kind of meta points in that, Jackie, that I pick up on is yes, there's the point on the going inward, and then there is kind of a qualities of being that that I'm hearing you describe around. We've talked about love and gratitude a lot, but you also mentioned feeling balance or feeling harmoniousness or also feeling
Mm,
space. I think that that's valuable when we go inside. Usually the first thing I experience when I go inside is like lots of thoughts and feelings that are kind of all sort like jagged, or they're all bumping into each other. It's hard to kind of make sense of things at first, and it's crowded. They're noisy, that. But then there's this space outside or beyond or in between those thoughts, and it's from that space that I sense the brightness, right? The Ming, the possibility, something that's different than my habitual, repetition of all those sorts of things. And so there's something about connecting with that and the qualities of being that kind of come forward there, that I think that help. And then the other part that I thought was very important that you highlighted there was that it's complicated in there, and it's not just like some easy 1 2 3, great, you solved it, go inside. That actually, it's quite an adventure in there, and there could be a lot of different experiences. It reminds me of our interview with Neha, from the end of last season, Rahul, and looking at trauma, and just the importance of really having awareness around that and being able to get help. That this is kind of an interlocking dynamic, right? It's like you have to go inside. It's the work is happening within, but also we need help. We need someone who has some perspective. We need a system that's functional that can give us good advice on how to practice. And there can be, there's a lot of different approaches to that, but finding something that is rooted in something that you can trust, or like in a teaching, or in science that you can believe, whatever it is that gives you a structure to actually really do this work in an effective way, in a safe way, and then also to kind of be honest with yourself as you go along that, right? Because it's, you kind of, then we always come up against, okay, I think I figured it out, or we choose a system that we want to follow, and then we have to kind of be honest with ourselves or look at it and ask, well, am I where I wanted to get to? Do I feel healthy? Is my life vibrant? Am I feeling great? Is there more there? And is there something that's still out there for me to connect with and pursue? And I know that, at least within the Renchoi system that we share, we would say there's always something more to pursue, right? That there's always some element of growth for us to lean into and to connect with. And so, yeah, in this big diverse world, I think that's a big part of our project that we do on this podcast is, this isn't about, I mean, I think Jackie and I would both say, like, yeah, Renchue is a fantastic system. It's probably the best system that each of us has found. And it's been very helpful to us. So take that for what it is. And, it's a big world out there, and there's a lot of systems. There's a lot of different ways, a lot of communities and networks. And it's about finding what's true for you. And somehow I think we find some universal truths through that, when we all go through that process. So I don't know. Those are just some. I don't quite have more of a reflection and comment back. I'm curious, Rahul, if that, like, with Jackie's share, if it sparks anything for you, or just kind of what's arising for you as you kind of sit with everything that's been shared today.
Yeah, at this particular moment, I'm absorbing all of it, and I think what just where you started, Gabe, right, with synthesizing around the ways of being, I think there's just a lot there, and a lot of what I feel like we've been talking about is how when you tune into yourself and do so in a way that's authentic and do so in a way that's still safe, right? And whatever that safety means for each person. There's one, the uplifting energy that we were talking about at the beginning, and everything that comes with that. But then there's also the information aspect that we've come back to a couple of times. This idea that, hey, if something is off, oftentimes you are aware of it at some level, and you can tune into that and find that wisdom within yourself, right? Whether it's a physical health thing tends to be obvious, right? I guess the brain has that part covered with pain receptors and whatnot, but everything else too, as far as when you're feeling stressed, when you're feeling disconnected, you're feeling lonely, you're feeling overwhelmed, or on the other side, even tuning into joy and hope and excitement and drawing energy from that, right? So whether it's noticing something wrong or drawing energy from what positive forces are there, I think a lot of my mind is going towards that right now. And then the other part is, as you've talked, both talked about this idea of finding a practice that's authentic to you. I'm relating to a couple of threads, Gabe, that we've explored on on this show, right? With different people around how do you find a practice? How do you, find what's true to you? What does committing to a practice look like, and what does it open up? And just I'm myself right now feeling a renewed energy to start with curiosity, right? And I heard that, Jackie, and what you were saying too. Like, hey, I was curious. I was just out there. I was out and about. I was looking. Start with curiosity. Stay in an experimental mindset. Like, hey, be curious, search, and then try things. Right? Try things and reflect and see how it works. And that's really where we discover what's authentic and what's not. And then from there, commit, right? Or surrender. Like I'm thinking, Gabe, to our conversation with Molly Worthen, right? And that was in the context of of surrendering and submitting to some sort of spiritual tradition. But I think the abstract idea holds true even here, right? Which is surrender to a practice and all of the wisdom and all of the growth and the learning that the practice itself offers you, as well as the structure that may come with that practice. So, a teacher, a community, body of knowledge, whatever it is, and just engaging with that, creates growth, and it's the fertile ground where we're able to really understand and deepen our understanding of all of the very different concepts that we've talked about here. So I guess, Gabe, I'm responding to your reflection with my own reflection,
Yeah.
and would love to see Jackie, as you listen to us, just ramble in all these different directions. What, if anything, it's prompted for you, and maybe also coalescing around a takeaway that you might want to leave for our listeners. If there was some sort of single takeaway that emerges from your own reflection at this stage.
I think what's mainly coalescing for me is this enormous sense of gratitude to you guys for what you're doing, and how you are weaving this all together to help and uplift everybody. That's what I feel. And so I think my takeaway would be just do it. Just get in there and find out what's there, because it's so amazing.
Hmm.
And that's where
That's
I'm at.
beautiful. Yeah. Thanks, Jackie. As as a last thought, I was thinking maybe you've painted us a lot of really beautiful stories and landscapes kind of throughout our time with you today, and I just thought it'd be nice. I know now I mentioned this at the very top. So you're living on a farm that's being developed into a retreat center, a ren shui retreat center, and um, yeah, I was just wondering if there's anything from the farm or an image that's been or experience that's been there, or just what it's been like, and maybe connected to our theme today of health and well-being. Um, yeah, kind of what has that experience brought you, and where are you at now? After we've gotten to kind of in broad strokes really follow you along on this like lifetime of medicine and experience that you've had. And so I'm just curious, yeah, like where does it leave you now, as you're waking up on this farm? And maybe you could just paint us a picture to close us out today on that.
Oh, thank you, Gabe. I didn't get to talk about my third career as farmer, did I? It's amazing being here, you know. It's a whole project, the Aotearoa Retreat Centre. The Aotearoa is the um, early Māori name for the first part of New Zealand that was seen, the North Island. And it's a whole project to provide a place to nourish life using Rinche, using Yuan Ming, using Yuan Gong, the Qigong system. And so, um, yeah, that word surrender, it's a really good one. I surrendered to the universe. I was like, okay, I've been a doctor, I've been a well-being lead and manager, and now, and it's like, boom, this farm and this project, and there's a lot of work behind that boom. With every good idea, there's a huge amount of work. It's like spiritual life development. It's work. But it's amazing. There are 3 families here now on the land, and we just got our consent from the regional council to have 10 families here and build an event centre to hold events, to nourish life and work with life in a whole totality. So it's a bit like the journey through life, we're a new group coming together. So we're finding ways to respect each other, go be in group process, make group decisions. These are things that have kind of challenged humanity along the way, and we're finding it's the richest ground for working on yourself, and in a really good way, and also in a challenging way. We've always, most of us kind of have a sense of ownership around our own place, but this is a community place. This is a home for humanity and for nature and for Rinche. And we have a set of beacons that we have a deep sense of respect for wherever we are, and we make our decisions based on what is beneficial for the whole. So it's great, and it's growthful, and it's challenging.
So cool.
And amazing. Yeah. Love to have you guys visit sometime.
Yeah.
And we welcome visitors. At the moment, what you would see is a farm with a lot of rain and quite a lot of cows.
Well, Jackie, one of the things I didn't even get to share with you in advance, and it's been on my mind the whole time, is my wife and I actually went to New Zealand for our honeymoon, and being around, Abel Tasman and Nelson and all the different parts of the South Island it holds a very special place in our heart. And we've wanted to go back, and now there's a whole other dimension and angle to that I'm excited to explore.
Great.
But more generally, just yeah, and more generally, just want to thank you for your positivity and your warmth and your wisdom and your just kindness, and for sharing this time with us. This is a great conversation, and I just feel grateful for having had a chance to meet you.
Oh, wow. I feel so touched and so grateful to have a chance to have the conversation. And Rahul, any of you, you're so welcome here. But thanks. It's been amazing being on your show. Such an opportunity and learning, and you guys are so supportive and kind. Just so lovely. Thanks from me.
Yeah, well, thank you, Jackie. It's been really fantastic having you on today. And I think as we just close, and if you're listening to this, you just heard you have an invite to the farm. So pack your bags and get your flight squared away. And in the meantime, while you're working on that, I think what I really loved about one thing I loved about the conversation today is how much it just ended up linking into so many of the other topics that we have covered on this show. And I think that speaks to the way that these themes really do interrelate, and they lean upon one another. And so we named some of those episodes that you can go check out. But with Neha, with Kaitna about finding a spiritual practice, with Molly Worthen, there are some great episodes to explore last year, which are all connected to this idea of the totality and discovering health and deepening into a life of health and well-being. And that's our theme here, right? Is vibrant living, uncovering vibrant living, finding our way into that, renewing our pathway into that every day. And so on that note, thanks so much for joining us again for another episode of what Rahul and I consider to be very much part of our own health practice, our own spiritual practice. And so as always, if you enjoy listening to us, please share our work with a friend, leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts, and join our newsletter to follow along the journey. You can find links to all of that, as well as Jackie's work in the show description. So reach out to us, join in this process, and thanks so much for being with us today. Wishing you great, bright, vibrant, and holistic health on your journey. Take care, and we'll see you next time.